Hey, this is Ken Kraetzer for the Marketing Club of New York. I'm a vice president of CBSI, and we're up in Harrison, New York today. But we have first of our summer marketing technology series webinar. Really glad everybody's joining us, and we've got a great guest, Don Shin from Crosscomm. And first, I just wanted to take a second to thank our sponsors for the Marketing Club of New York at the gold level, Focus USA, Wyland, and Allant. Silver level is Adstra, Claritas, Epsilon, Sturista, and the bronze level, Japs Olson, CML, Complete Mailing List, and Summer Friday. We appreciate the sponsorship and participation of all of those member companies. And a couple of big events coming up we're looking forward to as we get into the fall. We're going to have our big privacy event on September 20th at Arno's Restaurant in Midtown Manhattan. Had a great event there in April. We're going back. And Bill McGowan's done a great job assembling the speakers on this, navigating the privacy landscape, what's happening, what are the government regulators doing, the EU. California always have to keep a close eye on, other states, Congress. And I think AI is going to come up in that discussion. So looking forward to that. It's Wednesday, September 20th at Arno's Restaurant in Midtown. And it's going to be a great event, and you want to all be there and join us. And then, of course, we have our 39th annual Silver Apples Awards Gala. And that's going to be Thursday, November 2nd, 6 o'clock at the Hard Rock Cafe, a new venue for us. Exciting place right in Times Square. We're going to have a lot of special music elements, and we're going to recognize some terrific honorees from the field of data-driven marketing, direct marketing, people that we've known and worked with for many years. And just like to thank Terry for all her help on this event. And again, I'm at CBSI. We work in the credit card field, 51 years now. And I also run the CBSI Talking Business video podcast series. We have 750 episodes. And if you'd like to tell your story, let me know. We'll give it a try. And but today, the star is our friend Don Shin, President and CEO of Crosscomm Incorporated, based down in Durham, North Carolina. And Don has had a terrific 25-year career in as a data scientist in marketing technology, and now in AI. So, Don, great to have you with us today. How you doing?
Doing well, thanks. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Don, if you would tell our audience a little bit about your background, some of the projects types that you've worked on over the years.
Sure. So I've been running my company, Crosscomm, for the past 25 years. First, starting off building websites on Netscape 1.1 in those early days. It was real heady and a lot of fun until the dot-com bust, which we all now know in retrospect wasn't really a bust. It was more of a pause. But that allowed us to get started in being able to build interactive apps through the web browser. And we basically just were really enamored with every single technological revolution that came along. And so when Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, we told ourselves, hey, we can build web apps. We'll build web apps for the iPhone. And we were some of the first folks to move in on that space. More importantly, it got us Apple's attention. They gave us early access to a beta of the native iPhone SDK, and we were able to build some of the first iPhone apps to launch on day one of the iTunes App Store. From there, moving on to other platforms that we're all now really aware of, Android, Apple Watch, and other ancillary platforms. Then augmented and virtual reality, Internet of Things devices and integration, and now machine learning. I think that the way I describe ourselves now is an innovation-leaning app development studio that looks to leverage these emerging technologies for our clients and to make a positive difference in the process.
Well, that's terrific, Don. And I know you have a lot of background in AI, which is on everybody's top of mind list to discuss what ChatGPT did and what Bard came out with and others. I know you've got a little presentation for us. Why don't we start with that?
Sure. Thank you all for your patience. So what I would like to do is really quickly provide you all enough of an understanding of how machine learning, AI of the machine learning variety, is fundamentally different from how a lot of the apps, software systems, CRMs that we use every day, and how it could actually add a tremendous amount of intelligence to our business processes, our marketing efforts, and ultimately make us not only more efficient as productive workers, but also transform our business models in the process. So let's dive into it. Firstly, let's skip that part. What is generative AI? Because this is a topic that has been gathering extreme amounts of attention, both in the media, the stock market, our businesses, everywhere. And what's the big deal about ChatGPT? Well, for a quick analogy, let me offer an example of how traditional software, whether it be your CRM or custom software or the apps that we use every day, operates. It operates in a very rules-based, business rules-based deterministic fashion. So for instance, if my CRM were to try to determine and assess whether a customer and a customer profile was a VIP customer or not, maybe we would tell the system to operate and assess customers based upon certain business rules. Like if this customer had spent more than $10,000 a year over the past 5 years, then let's consider this customer a VIP. Maybe if this sample customer had spent less than $10,000 over the last year, maybe return the diamond tier. Or maybe if the sample customer had spent less than $1,000, gold tier. Otherwise, let's just consider the customer a standard tier. All of those lines are basically business rules for software and technical systems to be able to think and assist us in determining things like whether or not a customer is a VIP or diamond tier or not. Machine learning operates in a way that is almost analogous to the way our brains work. We have virtual neurons that capture mathematical and statistical weights so that it takes in inputs and still produces outputs. It could still take in a customer and then determine whether or not they are a VIP or a diamond or a gold tier. But it does it in a way that potentially takes in a lot more complex, rich collections of inputs and context, and then determines that output in a more human-like fashion. How that could be really useful in solving problems that we have not yet been able to solve previous to neural networks are rich packets of data like JPEG images. For instance, this photo of a dog here. If you all are in marketing, you deal with images and digital photos all the time. It's a two-dimensional grid of pixels. How do we determine what's actually inside the photo? A neural network, through training, through the usage of training data, can basically start to understand what exactly is in the photo and to be able to determine and tell us whether or not it's a dog, a cat, or something else. In fact, if you take pictures with maybe a modern smartphone running on the latest operating system, my iOS iPhone machine learning model tells me it's a dog lying next to a tree. And that caption was actually created from machine learning built into the operating system. So 3 things to know about machine learning AI, and then we can talk about the practical implications. Firstly, machine learning models, they learn how to make predictions and make judgments based upon the training data you feed it. In order for a machine learning model to understand what a dog looks like, you've got to feed it thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of pictures of dogs, and then it will start to be able to know what a dog looks like. The other thing to understand is that machine learning models are considered black boxes. What that means is that unlike the business rules that I showed you earlier, where I can maybe look at the business rules and figure out if I want to adjust the business rules to determine whether or not a customer should be a VIP customer versus a diamond or a gold customer, machine learning models cannot tell you what variables it used or considered exactly to determine its judgment. All it can do is basically match the inputs against the training data that you fed it previously. But once sufficiently trained, machine learning models can generate novel and complex outputs from relatively simple inputs. And this is where we get into things like generative AI. So what is generative AI? It's basically building upon our knowledge of machine learning to generate content, complex and rich outputs based upon something very simple as an input, like a prompt. This is a snapshot of me querying ChatGPT 4 on what is generative AI, and I ask it to describe itself in one paragraph. And instead of going into that verbose language, I then offered a follow-up prompt. Tell me what generative AI is in one paragraph, and as if I was an 8-year-old. It responded by saying generative AI is like a smart computer brain that can create new things all by itself. Imagine if you showed a robot a bunch of drawings of cats, and after seeing these drawings, the robot can then make its own drawings of cats, even though it has never actually seen a cat. Just like how you might learn to draw something by looking at a picture, this AI learns from things it sees and reads and then creates its own stuff, like pictures, stories, or even music. It's like having an artist living inside your computer. And when I read that description that it gave me, the first thought that came to mind is like, it's actually more like having a knowledge worker living inside your computer. And in fact, I told ChatGPT that in my response, and look at how it continued the conversation. So this is a more human-like form of interaction with a knowledge-based system that is more human than anything that we have built in the past. Having follow-up conversations, delving into things, and asking it questions that provide informative and useful responses. Really powerful stuff. And that is why media and society has been abuzz about generative AI and large language models that drive it. Think of generative AI really as autocomplete on steroids. If I were to say, love and marriage go together like a blank, you would probably say horse and carriage. But how did you know that? You know, because it is within our cultural knowledge of how to go about completing that phrase. And that is an oversimplification, because what ChatGPT and other large language models like Bard do is that they take those statistics about completing not just words, not just fragments of words, not just sentences, but even entire paragraphs and even entire meaning fragments. So the question that arises is, what could one autocomplete? And what could one explain? And what kind of questions could you answer if you had perfect memory and read all of Wikipedia, or in fact, the whole internet? And that is where these large language models are taking us and becoming incredibly powerful tools to assist us in whatever we're trying to do. And the rate of improvement has been incredible. By way of reference, one of the earlier versions of ChatGPT, number 2, had 1.5 billion virtual neurons trained on the data of 8 million web pages. ChatGPT 3, which you all can use for free by going to chat.openai.com, is actually comprised of a neural network 100 times larger than its predecessor. And the most recent version of ChatGPT, version 4, which you can access if you are a ChatGPT Plus member paying $20 a month, is 1,000 times larger in size with regards to parameters. So the field is making incredible progress. Even though we're doing a lot and society is doing a lot to figure out how to detect what has been generated with AI and what is not, it's becoming increasingly difficult based upon how closely these neural networks are able to simulate the way a human uses language. And by the way, generative AI is not just about creating text. It's also about creating images. There are several platforms out there, DALL-E, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, where you can use as an input a text phrase like cats emerging from a toaster, and it will generate a new image that has never existed before, like the one that you see on the right here, that was generated via AI. Think about what that's going to do, not just for creative endeavors and design work. Think about stock artwork. Think about any kind of storytelling that needs imagery. Here, my prompt was a business executive at a fork in the road, anxious about making a decision in the style of impressionism. And this is what it returned to me. So you can start to see that for the creative class and for the knowledge worker, this can be a tool that amplifies and accelerates a lot of the work that we could potentially be doing. So let's get real practical here. How can we all use it as individuals, increasing our own personal productivity with generative AI? Firstly, it's understanding what large language models like ChatGPT and Bard are great at doing and what you absolutely should not rely upon them for help for. So some great uses for large language models: generating copy that describes an idea. For instance, what is democracy and what makes it different from other socioeconomic systems? Explains something. How do you play chess? How do I use digital marketing through online ads? How do I create a compelling blog post about technology? Helps you ideate. If you have a nascent spark of idea, you can offer it to ChatGPT and ask to brainstorm, ideate possible directions and where to take a story, an argument, a discussion thread. It could even simulate or role play a party and a conversation, or provide a sounding board to provide opposing arguments, different angles and perspectives on your train of thought in preparation for a discussion, a sales pitch, or a debate. And it has an incredible ability to transform or convert your content. Oftentimes, I've been told, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. And I have so many ideas in my head that I want to share with others, but I struggle and spend a lot of my mental energy trying to figure out how to go about best sharing that information in the appropriate tone, with the appropriate level of complexity and appropriate length. These days, I can come up with an outline in bullet point format, share it with ChatGPT, and ask to generate a blog post, generate a talk, generate a summary, an abstract, or even an email in a particular tone of voice or level of formality. It's not just what you say, but it's how you say it. And if you know what you want to say, ChatGPT can then unblock the creative mind by providing variations on how to share that content and message. However, there are some real pitfalls in using these large language models in inappropriate use cases. The irony is that even though companies like Google and Microsoft are heavily investing in large language models, search of the reference variety is inappropriate for use with large language models. Because remember, they're all auto-completion engines that statistically guess what the next word, the next sentence, the next phrase should be. And so the kind of search that involves looking for references, citations, biographies or CV details, other types of information requiring precision is not encouraged. In fact, I would actively discourage it, lest you become like one of the examples of that legal firm that looked up court cases to support their arguments, only to find out in court that those court cases that were cited by ChatGPT actually did not exist. That is the phenomenon of what's known in the industry as hallucinations, where basically it speaks untruths with equal amounts of confidence as truths. Because again, it's not operating like a traditional database of searching for existing information. It's operating off of statistics and probabilities. So be discerning about how you go about using large language models in not just your personal use, but your business use cases. Also, bear in mind that these machine learning systems are constantly evolving, changing, growing, and improving based upon not just the training data that's been given to it in the past, but also by its current usage by yours truly, myself, yourself, anyone who uses ChatGPT and these machine learning models. You are increasing its efficacy and effectiveness by providing it with additional training data. So you want to be careful about the use of proprietary data, client information under NDA, trade secrets, or even personal or privacy sensitive information as part of your chat prompts. And then finally, there are some sticky legal situations where our society still needs to catch up with technology. Firstly, the matter of copyright. Who owns this generated content? Just recently, the US Copyright Office denied copyright protection to some AI generated artwork for a book cover and a comic book. And there's real concern that the kind of information, especially for if you're in the consultancy business or the agency business, where you are responsible for developing or designing content that is unencumbered or has copyright claims taken care of, that could be a real sticky situation. One other thing that I want to just offer out there as a tool for agencies is take a look and keep an eye on Adobe Firefly. You can get to it by going to firefly.adobe.com. It's in beta, and it offers generative AI for images. And they've recently provided an indemnity clause that basically handles and takes care of copyright claims that might arise from the use of the generated artwork that it creates. So if you want to delve into or dive into the use of generated artwork, generated imagery, but are worried about that, that might be a good route to look into for now. Also, privacy. GDPR in Europe, as well as local privacy and state-based laws. That's going to be a real sticky topic for quite some time. For a while, Italy banned ChatGPT and then it reversed that ban, understanding that this is a technology that is like a Pandora's box. It's out of the box and we're not going to be able to put it back in again. And unfortunately, there is a lot of data about people inside the training data that was built and trained these large language models. One fun exercise is to log into ChatGPT, again, by going to chat.openai.com and then asking the chatbot, who is, and put in your name, who is Don Shin? When I tried it on myself, it gave me a bio that was 90% accurate and 10% bullcrap. And so there's going to be a lot of interesting and difficult situations with taking out personal information out of a platform like ChatGPT, because once it's in the training data, it's now basically, and once that machine learning model has been trained on the data, it's been embedded in those weights, and it's not an easy thing to just extract and take out. So there are things to be aware of and things to be mindful of, but the reason why the technology industry and the entrepreneurial environment is heavily investing in generative AI is because you can see how this changes the game with regards to the kind of work we do, what our jobs look like and consist of, and the kind of tasks we do every day for our businesses. It's going to change our world, potentially even more so than the internet did when it arrived. And so it's something society is going to have to wrestle with, and we're going to have to be real savvy in figuring out how to use in the meantime. Getting even more practical. Wanted to offer some real helpful nuts and bolts tips on how to go about using prompts and getting useful information out of a large language model like ChatGPT or Bard. Oftentimes, what I'll ask ChatGPT to do is to tell me, what are the 3 most important things to know about this matter, about fintech, about horseback riding, about Malaysian culture. And I'll get a distilled summary, and then I can expand and dive into additional details and specifics through follow-up prompts. Or as you can see from one of my earlier prompts, explain some kind of complex concept like calculus, derivatives, and integration as if I was in high school in 1 or 2 paragraphs, to get a refresher on something or to distill some kind of complex idea like generative AI in 1 or 2 paragraphs. It's also helpful to serve as a sounding board or as a contrarian perspective, or to fill in blind spots about a topic you're exploring, or maybe wanting to present on, or wanting to evaluate for your business. When I think about blank, an idea, I think about maybe these particular themes, but what other angles or perspectives should I be considering? ChatGPT is intelligent enough to offer up some additional thoughts and tangential ideas for whatever you are evaluating. And then finally, just some real quick time-saving measures, like the following is a bullet point outline, write a blog post based upon it. Very rarely will I just copy and paste and be done with it. I'll use that as a starting point to accelerate and unblock my writing so that I can convert ideas into marketing-ready content as quickly as possible. We talked about conversion of content. And so we can go from long form to short form, like asking ChatGPT to write a condensed summary of the following text, and then I paste in a blog post and maybe get a 3-sentence description. Or maybe it's just modifying the tone or the colloquial style of language by rewriting the following email, message, or thread to be more polite or formal or informal, maybe more technical or more simple or detailed. ChatGPT can do those conversions for you. And as someone who's in technology and as a software developer, you know that pseudocode that I showed you, those business rules, as an example of how traditional software thinks about the world? Well, I offered that snippet of pseudocode and asked it to convert that pseudocode into an actual JavaScript function. And the right-hand side of the slide is what it returned to me. Yes, ChatGPT can write code as well and convert language into code, and even convert code into colloquial language if you don't have a technical background, but you want to get fragments or understand, broadly speaking, what the code is doing. It's incredible stuff. Some of you astutely might observe that there is an error in one of the lines of the code. And so the output is not perfect, but it's a great starting point for someone who does know what they're doing to accelerate their work, accelerate their software development, save time and save money. I've been talking so far about how generative AI can potentially accelerate and improve and enhance our personal productivity in our work. But I think it's transformative enough that it could actually impact the way our businesses operate, our business models, and how we go about providing value to our customers and clients. And due to time constraints, I'm going to just touch upon this and then go into questions and answers, because I really want to know what's all on your minds and address that. But something that we should all be aware about is that ChatGPT has an API, an application programming interface. What that means is that it has the sufficient interface to be able to integrate ChatGPT into your existing business systems and processes. So you can integrate large language models like ChatGPT into your existing accounting systems, marketing systems, CRMs, Salesforce, etc., to provide human-like customer service experiences and chatbots and avatars. Or how about creating personalized automated marketing messages, copy and images based specifically on that customer's unique profile and phenotype? How about the use of generative AI for hyper-realistic simulation, training, and role-playing to simulate scenarios involving human interaction? Think about training therapists, training counselors, training bank tellers, training customer service representatives with an interactive experience that is always different and incredibly human in its responses and conversation threads. And then finally, I mentioned the idea of auto-completion and how powerful it could be when ingesting either Wikipedia or maybe even the entire internet. There are open source large language models that you can run without a connection to the internet, if necessary, for private or proprietary use cases. Let's say your company has been around for 50 years and you have thousands upon thousands of documents that you need to summarize and provide for your internal workforce so that they can basically quickly reference ideas, concepts, processes, or business institutional knowledge quickly over time. Bloomberg got a lot of media attention recently by creating their own internal large language model called Bloomberg GPT to serve as a knowledge base for explaining to their own internal team members and employees complex financial terminology and financial and investment concepts. I think a lot of organizations can benefit from using not just large language models for external customer-facing use, but also for internal use for training and empowering employees within the company. So I would like to conclude by leaving you all with 4 questions that I believe are essential for all business leaders, and that all business leaders should answer for their own selves and their own business situation. How can you and your company use AI today in your productivity workflow, and how will your jobs change? Yes, AI will replace some jobs, but it will change all of our jobs. It will make some work redundant in the way that every technological displacement event throughout history has happened. And it will likely change the nature of our day-to-day tasks as these kind of technologies get better at doing the things that normally took up our time. How will our jobs change? And then how can you use AI as a competitive advantage? Is there any proprietary data that your business can accumulate or capture over time to train a machine learning model to have a competitive advantage, or to transform your business model and generate new value, new streams of revenue from these powerful prediction and judgment models? How are you planning and intending to change your capital allocation as a business owner or leader as a result of AI? How can you use AI to save money, to reduce costs, and to, again, generate new business revenue? And then lastly, think about how AI will affect the value of your product or service that you sell. Do you think it will increase the value of your product or service? Will it diminish or eat into some of the value of your product and service? Either way, how are you going to adapt to those changes so that we all can stay competitive as leaders in our businesses? Love to leave you all with those questions. I am in the business of helping companies answer these precise questions for themselves, as well as building out integrations and implementations of software so that businesses can leverage AI to transform their models and transform the way that they do business. So happy to have ongoing conversations with people. Feel free to reach out to me through this contact information here. But hopefully this was interesting. Hopefully this was challenging. Hopefully I gave you all a lot of food for thought about how you can integrate these tools into your productivity workflow today, and think about how to go about adjusting the way your businesses operate for tomorrow. Thanks all
Okay,
for your
Don.
attention.
That's great, Don. Appreciate all that. It's going to be a lot of questions. And one of the things that I heard actually at the FinTech conference this week was a senior official of Chase or JP Morgan talk about AI as a way to write code. And this was right after he talked about hallucinations being a concern.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get a chance to ask him about one and the other, why he thinks that you can you can use AI to write code that may affect millions of customers. If it's got an issue that's going to happen 5 or 2% of the time. And we have a question related from our colleague Chet Dalzell about any suggestions for detecting hallucinations in your AI generated drafts. And that's why we have humans. I guess the whole question is how reliable is ChatGPT or others for doing significant work in coding and other areas?
Mm-hmm. So firstly, I want to emphasize that these large language models are most useful in a generative capacity rather than a reference and lookup capacity. If you want to look up a medical research study, if you want to look up a court case, if you want to look up specific references or citations, don't use ChatGPT, just use Google. If you want to create content, then ChatGPT is a great source for you. And with regards to specifically generating code, I myself am trained as a software developer. And I don't think it's going to entirely replace human software developers, at least in the short-term future. I think what it will more likely do is it will allow one senior software developer to output, to create the output of what was previously done with 3 to 5 software developers in the past.
Very good. And I guess one of the areas, I kind of wonder, with all of the attention given to ChatGPT and Bard and others, what is the impact on search? You mentioned Google, but how much will we see a change in the way the search engines operate now that they're affiliating with these powerful AI resources?
Mm-hmm. So I think that the interface for search is certainly going to become more human, and there's going to be a merger of generative AI systems cooperating with traditional database-driven systems for a while, so that you could even access database-driven results in a much more colloquial human conversational format. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that these systems are going to have to determine whether or not you are searching for explanation and for how to and for what versus lookup search, which is more about trying to find specific references. And then determining based upon the intention of the user, it's going to then lean more into potentially the content generated by generative AI versus the results generated by a traditional database search.
Very good. Now, one of the areas, obviously, the club has many digital marketing agencies participating. What would you say as agencies are creating their fall campaigns or holiday season campaigns? How will they implement AI to perhaps show more creativity?
Sure. So it's going to be an arms race, and the people adopting these tools are going to be able to produce more and produce more in terms of quantity and produce more variety in terms of creative output using these tools. And I mentioned Adobe Firefly earlier, the beta. We should all be aware that both Google and Facebook are heavily investing in generating through generative AI, generating ad copy as well as ad imagery for ad campaigns done through AdWords and Google advertising and for Facebook advertising respectively. So start keep your eye out for those tools and look into leveraging them as quickly as possible. There's always still going to be the element of human judgment, but what it's going to do is it's going to accelerate the amount of output being able to be overseen and managed by a team.
Very good. Now, another area the club members work very actively in is supporting programmatic advertising, all the advertising that we'll see on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and other social media channels. I'm seeing a lot less of what we used to call ads that would follow you. You click on an ad for tennis shoes, and for 2 weeks, you'd see ads for tennis shoes every time you turn on your computer. I'm seeing a lot less of that, and I'm wondering it's because AI is looking at a wider scope of possible ads to show customers. What do you see about that?
I think that that phenomenon of sticky ads following you, it's probably more a phenomenon of platform holders like Apple closing their doors and making it more difficult for companies like Facebook to use that kind of technology. And in fact, Apple increasing its ability for users to be able to opt out from that kind of tracking. You may have noticed that if you're using an iOS device with a recent version of the operating system, has severely hit into Facebook's advertising model and its revenue as a result. So I think that different platform holders, when they, for whatever reason, whether if altruistically or for their own business advantage, start to close the gateways on tracking for privacy purposes, it makes it a lot harder for advertisers to be able to do that kind of following.
Very good. And Don, we've just got a couple of minutes left. And please put in your questions if you'd like. We work a lot, obviously, in banking on customer service, and during the pandemic, there was really a decreasing pool of human representatives to field calls. So the industry really looked at automating and trying to use chatbots and other means to satisfy many routine customer calls, saving reps for maybe more significant calls. What do you see about how ChatGPT or other AI resources will help organizations expand and the quality of their customer service delivery?
So I talked about personalized marketing, and also that certainly opens the door to personalized customer service messaging and experiences. Email is one form, but there's also nothing stopping a company from using the generative AI created text content or email, and then generatively creating voice voice characterizations of that message. You all may have seen in the media how companies are now replicating voices, whether it be James Earl Jones for Darth Vader, or songs that sound like Drake through generative AI. We're getting into a very remarkable place where now generative AI is able to create voices that very closely mimic the voices of celebrities, the voices of politicians, with enough training data. It's a disaster for misinformation, but it also provides an opportunity for marketing-driven avatar experiences that are very human and even emotive in nature.
Hey, we just have, I think I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we have to break. Really appreciate the audience, everyone joining us, our first of what I call our marketing technology showcases, and so glad to have the expertise of Don Shin today. Don, you've done a lot of work on these virtual reality headsets, and I know that was something that Facebook had poured a lot of resources in. Where is that going today? Is that something we'll see active in the near future?
Yeah, so I think that Metaverse's emphasis on what they know best, which is social media, was a little bit of a setback for virtual and augmented reality at large. And the reason why is because it made everyone think about virtual reality in relation to socializing. And don't get me wrong, I think that that is certainly a valid use case for VR, but I think a really ROI-driven use case worth exploring or context worth exploring is use within enterprises today. Simulation and training is a killer app for augmented and virtual reality. And how that relates to AI is, could you imagine being able to train your employee staff on human interactions using generative AI driven avatars? Sometimes training for human interaction can become really repetitive, really stilted, and really programmed. But what if it was varying and human-like every single time you went through the training regimen? I think that's going to be an incredible asset for people, companies training customer service representatives, bank tellers, anyone interacting with humans as part of their job.
Very good. And I think we're going to break. But Don Shin of Crosscomm, thank you so much for joining us at the Marketing Club of New York. We hope you'll attend one of our events when we're back in person in September. We've got a big privacy event that's September 20th at Arno's Restaurant, a luncheon that Bill McGowan's putting together. And we'll have information, more details out on that very soon. But Don, thank you so much for joining us. Thank our audience. Our first, what I call for the Marketing Club of New York, our marketing technology showcase. And if there's a presentation or talk you'd like to have from one of our members, just let me know, and we'll see if we can put that together. I want to thank Terry St. Jacques for her help on putting this together, and all of our team on the board of the Marketing Club of New York. We're a nearly 100-year-old organization talking about marketing in the New York City area. So anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks to Don Shin again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Ken. Really enjoyed the opportunity. And if anyone wants a copy of the deck, feel free to reach out to me.
Very good.